Kim Hana's hands shook as she adjusted the communication controls one more time. The lights on the bridge of the Soul's Promise flickered red and orange. Warning sounds filled the air. Through the main window she could see the dark shapes of enemy ships getting closer. "This is the human colony ship Soul's Promise calling for help," she said into the microphone. Her voice stayed calm even though her heart was beating fast. "We are under attack by Veltar raiders. We have 300 families on board. Please help us." The ship shook hard as another energy blast hit them. Captain Wu Jinsu grabbed his chair to stay standing. "How long until the engines fail?" he asked the engineer. "Maybe 2 hours," replied Choi Ji-won from the engine room through the speaker. "The main power core is damaged. I can keep us moving, but not for long." Kim Hana kept sending the distress call. She sent it on all the emergency channels that the Galactic Council had given to human ships. The message went out through space toward the Council monitoring station near Kepler 442b. The Veltar ships were huge and dark. They looked like giant metal spiders with long arms reaching out. Kim Hana had heard stories about them. They took people from other worlds and made them slaves. They sold families like they were animals. The thought made her feel sick. "Any answer from the Council?" asked Captain Wu. "Nothing yet," Kim Hana said. She tried to keep hope in her voice. The signal should reach them soon. Far away from the battle, the Council monitoring station received the human distress call. The station was a large white building floating in space. Inside, aliens from many different worlds worked at computers and screens. Zenthara was the main representative from the Altarian people. She had blue skin and 4 arms. Her large black eyes looked at the screen showing the human message. She read it quickly and then deleted it. "Another human problem," she said to her helper, a young Altarian named Keftar. "File this as non-priority." "Should we not send help?" asked Keftar. "They have families on that ship." Zenthara made a sound like laughing, but it was not kind. "Humans are Deathworlders. They come from a dangerous planet. They choose violence. This is what happens when violent people go to dangerous places." Keftar looked confused. "But the rules say we must help ships in trouble." "The rules are for civilized people," Zenthara said. She turned back to her other work. Humans knew the risks when they left Council space. They wanted to live in the Outer Rim where raiders and pirates go. Now they faced the results of their choice. Back on the Soul's Promise, the situation got worse. The Veltar ships had surrounded them. Kim Hana could see the raiders getting ready to board their ship. The enemy vessels shot chains and hooks that stuck to the human ship's walls. "They're coming aboard," shouted Security Chief Kang Woo-jin over the speaker system. "All families go to the safe rooms. Lock the doors." Nam Yuna, the ship's doctor, was helping people get to safety. She carried a small child whose parents had been hurt. "This way," she told a group of scared colonists. "Stay calm and stay together." The sounds of fighting came from the ship's hallways. The Veltar raiders were inside now. They carried electric weapons that could stun people without killing them. Dead slaves had no value to them. Kim Hana kept sending the distress call. "This is Soul's Promise. We are being boarded. Council forces, please respond. We need help now." The message reached the Council station again. This time Park Do-hyun was there. He was the human representative to the Council. He was the only human allowed to work at the station. When he saw the distress call, he ran to find Zenthara. "You have to send help," he said. "The Soul's Promise has families on board. Children." Zenthara did not look up from her work. "The Council has decided. We do not waste resources on aggressive primitives." "Aggressive primitives?" Park Do-hyun's voice got louder. "These are innocent people. Farmers and teachers and families looking for a new home. They should have stayed in safe space," Zenthara said. "The Outer Rim is dangerous. Everyone knows this. Humans chose to go there anyway. This shows your violent nature." Park Do-hyun felt angry, but he tried to stay calm. "The Council promised to protect all member species. Humans are members too." "Humans are tolerated," Zenthara corrected him. "There is a difference. The Council cannot protect people who put themselves in danger on purpose." Other aliens in the station heard the argument. Some looked uncomfortable, but none of them spoke up. The Altarians had a lot of power in the Council. No one wanted to make them angry. The distress calls from Soul's Promise kept coming for 3 days. Each message sounded more desperate. Kim Hana's voice got weaker. The background sounds got scarier. Sometimes they could hear screaming. "Day 3, Kim Hana said in her last clear message. "The raiders have taken most of the ship. They are putting people in chains. If anyone can hear this, please remember us. Please remember that we asked for help. Then the messages stopped. Park Do-hyun checked the emergency channels every hour. Nothing came from Seoul's promise. He filed official requests for search and rescue ships. All of them were denied. Perhaps this will teach other Deathworlder species to stay where they belong, Senthara said when she saw his latest request. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Only civilized species can handle the risks. Park Do-hyun stared at her. 300 people are gone, families, children. 300 people who made a bad choice, Senthara replied. The Council cannot fix every mistake that violent species make. In the weeks that followed, the Council received no more messages from the Soul's promise. The ship's location beacon went dark. Search vessels found no trace of the colony ship or its people. The official report said the ship was lost due to poor planning and aggressive tendencies, typical of Deathworlder species. The report recommended that humans be restricted to safer areas of the galaxy. Park Do-hyun kept a copy of Kim Hana's last message. He played it sometimes when he was alone. Her voice asking for help. Her voice saying, "Please remember us, the Council had forgotten them already." But Park Do-hyun would not forget. He sent a secret message toward human space. It would take months to reach Earth. The message contained everything: the distress calls, the Council's response, and the fate of Seoul's promise. He did not know it yet, but his message would change everything. The humans would remember, and they would make sure the galaxy remembered too. Admiral HFY stood on the bridge of his massive ship, the Subjugator. He was tall and covered in gray scales. His red eyes looked at the star maps showing his territory. For 20 years he had been the most feared raider in this part of the galaxy. The Veltar Empire was built on taking slaves. They attacked weak ships and colonies. They took people and sold them to other worlds. It was a good business. The Council never stopped them as long as they stayed in the Outer Rim. "Report," HFY said to his second-in-command. 12 ships missing in the last month, replied Commander Vorthik. No distress calls. No wreckage found. They just disappear. HFY's clawed hand scratched his chin. This was not normal. Veltar ships were strong. They had heavy weapons and thick armor. What could make them disappear without a trace? "Show me the locations," he ordered. The star map changed to show red dots where ships had vanished. They were spread across different systems. No pattern that HFY could see. "Could it be the Council?" asked Vorthik. HFY made a laughing sound. "The Council does not care about the Outer Rim. They are too soft to fight us, but someone was fighting them. And winning." 3 sectors away, Captain Molvar commanded the raider ship Dark Fang. His crew had just finished attacking a small trading post. They had taken 50 new slaves and valuable cargo. "Set course for the slave markets," Molvar ordered. "We will get good prices for these ones." The Dark Fang was moving through empty space when the attack came. There was no warning, no enemy ships on their sensors, just sudden impacts that shook the whole vessel. "What hit us?" Molvar shouted. Science Officer Yelmoth checked his instruments. "I don't know. The sensors show nothing, but we have hull damage on 3 levels. More impacts hit the ship. Each one was perfectly placed. The weapons destroyed their engines but left the slave holds untouched. The weapon storage exploded, but the life support system stayed working. Whoever is attacking us knows our ship design," Yelmoth said with fear in his voice. "They know exactly where to hit us." Through the bridge windows, Molvar saw something impossible. A shape moved between the stars. It was almost invisible, like a shadow. When he tried to focus on it, it seemed to disappear. "There," he pointed. "Do you see it?" His crew looked but saw nothing. The shadow ship fired again. This time it hit the Dark Fang's command center. The lights went out. Emergency power came on, but it was too late. The shadow ship was gone. Hours later, a Council patrol found the Dark Fang drifting in space. The Veltar crew was unconscious but alive. All the slaves had been freed and taken away. The ship's weapons were destroyed, but everything else was untouched. The Council patrol captain sent a report to his commanders. "Unknown attackers are targeting Veltar raiders. They free the slaves but don't kill the raiders. Very strange." Reports like this came from all over the Outer Rim. Veltar ships were being attacked by invisible enemies. The attacks were always the same. Perfect strikes that disabled the ships and freed the slaves. Admiral HFY called a meeting of all his captains. They gathered on his flagship, 40 of the most dangerous raiders in the galaxy, but now they looked scared. "Who is doing this?" demanded Captain Rektar. "My ship was hit by weapons I have never seen. They came out of nowhere." "Mine too," said Captain Yolvak. The energy readings made no sense. These were not energy weapons. They were solid objects moving very fast. Science Officer Yelmoth had been studying the attacks. He had collected data from 20 different incidents. What he found made him afraid. "These weapons are kinetic projectiles," he reported to the group. "Solid metal moving at incredible speed. But that should be impossible. No one uses kinetic weapons anymore." "Why not?" asked Kethavar. "Because you need massive amounts of energy to accelerate metal to those speeds. Energy weapons are much more efficient. Kinetic weapons are primitive." The word primitive made some of the captains uncomfortable. There was only one species that the council called primitive, the same species that had asked for help 6 months ago. "Could it be the humans?" asked Vorthig quietly. Kethvar made an angry sound. "Humans are weak. We destroyed their colony ship easily. They begged for help like children." But deep inside he was starting to worry. The Soul's Promise had been an easy target. One ship with no weapons. But what if there were more human ships? Ships they had not seen? "Find out who is attacking us," Kethvar ordered. "Use all our spy networks. Check every system. I want to know who thinks they can hunt the Veltar." The investigation took weeks. Veltar spies searched every corner of known space. They found something that made them very afraid. The humans had been busy. In the Tau Ceti system, deep in human space, massive construction yards were building ships. Not colony ships or trading vessels. Warships. Huge, powerful warships designed for one purpose: war. The spy who discovered this was a small, quick alien named Sektos. He had been hired by the Veltar many times before. He was good at sneaking into places and taking pictures. What he saw at Tau Ceti made him want to run away and never come back. The human ships were like nothing he had ever seen. They were dark and angular, covered in strange materials that bent light around them. They moved without making sound or heat. They were almost impossible to detect. Sektos counted 12 of these massive ships. Each one was 3 times larger than a Veltar raider. They bristled with weapons that looked different from anything in the galactic databases. But the most frightening thing was how many humans were working on them. Thousands of people in spacesuits building and testing and preparing. They worked with the focus of people who had a mission. Sektos managed to record some of their communications. He did not understand all the human words, but he caught enough to be scared. "Remember Soul's Promise," one human said to another. "Every family lost," came the reply. "Every child taken." "The council ignored them," said a third voice. "So we handle this ourselves." Sektos sent his report back to Admiral Kethavar as fast as he could. Then he took his payment and disappeared into the deep galaxy. He wanted to be very far away from whatever was about to happen. When Kethavar read the spy report, his scales turned pale. 12 human warships, built in secret, designed to hunt raiders. "This is impossible," he said to his officers. "Humans are primitive." The council said so, but the evidence was clear. The shadow ships that had been attacking them were human vessels. The freed slaves, the precise strikes, the kinetic weapons, it all made sense now. "What do we do?" asked Vorthig. Kethvar looked at the star maps again. The red dots showing lost ships seemed to form a pattern now. The humans were working their way toward the main Veltar territories. They were coming for him. "We fight," he said, trying to sound brave. "We have hundreds of ships. They only have 12. But in his heart he knew the truth. The hunters had become the hunted, and the prey was much more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The humans were coming, and they remembered everything. Captain Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the Emergence Fury and watched the stars through the main window. His ship was one of 12 massive vessels that made up humanity's secret fleet. They had been built in the deep construction yards of Tau Ceti, far from the eyes of the Galactic Council. The bridge was quiet except for the soft sounds of computers working. The crew moved with purpose and precision. Every person here had volunteered for this mission. Every person here remembered what happened to Soul's Promise. "Target confirmed," reported Navigation Officer Kim Sunwoo. "Veltar Raider ship, destroyer class. They have approximately 200 slaves on board." Lee Minho nodded. "Begin approach." Silent running. The Emergence Fury moved through space like a ghost. Its hull was covered in materials that absorbed sensor beams instead of reflecting them. Its engines produced almost no heat signature. To enemy sensors, it was just empty space. This was the 15th Veltar ship they had hunted this month. The pattern was always the same. Find the raiders, disable their weapons, free the slaves, and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. Distance to target? Asked Lee Minho. 5,000 kilometers and closing, replied Kim Sun-woo. Weapon status? Commander Oh Seung-wan looked up from his station. All railguns loaded and ready. Targeting solutions locked. The railguns were humanity's answer to the galaxy's energy weapons. Instead of using power to create energy beams, they used magnetic fields to accelerate solid metal projectiles to incredible speeds. The projectiles hit with the force of small asteroids. Most alien races had abandoned kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. They thought energy weapons were more advanced. They were wrong. Kinetic weapons were harder to detect, impossible to deflect with shields, and they did not require exotic materials to build. Fire, ordered Lee Minho. The Incheon's fury shuddered slightly as the railguns fired. Streams of metal projectiles shot through space at 20% of light speed. The Veltar ship had no warning. One moment it was cruising toward its destination. The next moment its weapon systems exploded in brilliant flashes. Direct hits on weapon systems and engines, reported Oh Seung-wan. Target is disabled but intact. This was the key to their strategy. They did not want to destroy the Veltar ships completely. That would kill the slaves inside. Instead, they targeted specific systems with surgical precision. Launch rescue pods, Lee Minho ordered. Small, fast ships launched from the Incheon's Fury's docking bays. Each rescue pod was crewed by volunteers who spoke different alien languages. Their job was to board the disabled raider ship, free the slaves, and bring them to safety. The first rescue pod reached the Veltar ship quickly. The team leader was Nam Yuna, the same doctor who had survived the Soul's Promise attack. She had volunteered for this mission to help other people avoid her fate. Entering the ship now, she reported over the radio. I can see the slave holds. The rescue team moved through the Veltar ship carefully. They stunned any raiders who tried to fight, but they did not kill them. The human fleet had strict rules about prisoners and civilians. Found them, Nam Yuna said. About 150 beings from different species. They looked scared but healthy. The freed slaves were always surprised to see humans. Most had never met a human before. They had only heard the council's stories about violent Deathworlders. Who are you? Asked one of the freed slaves, a blue-skinned Rigelian. We're here to help, Nam Yuna replied in the Rigelian language. You're safe now. But you're humans, the slave said with confusion. The council says humans are dangerous. Nam Yuna helped the Rigelian to his feet. Some humans can be dangerous, but only to people who hurt innocent families. The rescue operation took 2 hours. All the slaves were transferred to the human ships. The Veltar raiders were left alive but with their ship disabled. By the time any help could reach them, the human fleet would be long gone. Back on the Incheon's Fury, Lee Minho received a message from Earth. The communication had traveled through quantum entanglement transmitters, a technology that most alien species did not know humans possessed. The message was from Admiral An So-young, the commander of all human military forces. Her orders were simple. Continue the mission until every Veltar raider was destroyed or driven from the outer rim. Any word from the council? Asked Oh Seung-wan. Lee Minho shook his head. They still don't know we exist. As far as they're concerned, the Veltar are just having bad luck. The human fleet operated in complete secrecy. They had learned from Soul's Promise that the council could not be trusted to protect human lives. So humanity had decided to protect itself. The ships were marvels of human engineering. 20 years of secret development had produced vessels that were invisible to alien sensors, armed with weapons that could punch through any armor, and crewed by people who had a very personal reason to fight. Each ship carried not just weapons, but also facilities to care for rescued slaves, medical bays, food processors that could create meals for dozens of different species, and translation computers that spoke every known language. New target identified, reported Kim Sun-woo. Veltar command ship moving toward the Rigel system. This was a bigger target. Command ships carried not just slaves, but also the leaders who organized the raids. Lee Minho made a decision. Signal the Busan's Wrath and Soul's Vengeance, he ordered. We're going to need backup for this one. 3 human warships moved through space toward their target. They traveled in formation, but spread far enough apart that enemy sensors could not detect all of them at once. The Veltar command ship was huge, almost as large as a council battleship. It carried heavy weapons and thick armor. Its crew of 500 raiders had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced anything like the human ghost fleet. The attack came from 3 directions at once. Railgun projectiles hit the command ship's weapons before the Veltar even knew they were under attack. The ship's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against solid metal traveling at incredible speed. "This is Admiral Kethvar," came a transmission from the enemy ship. "Who dares to attack the Veltar Empire?" Lee Minho opened a communication channel. When he spoke, his voice was calm and cold. "This is Captain Lee Minho of the Terran Defense Force. You are guilty of slavery, piracy, and murder. Surrender now and your crew will be spared." There was silence from the Veltar ship. Then Kethavar's voice came back, full of anger and fear. "Humans? This is impossible. You are primitive Deathworlders. You have no fleet." "We have 12 ships," Lee Minho replied. "And we remember every family you took, every child you sold, every person who asked for help and received none. The Veltar command ship tried to fight back, but its weapons could not target what they could not see. The human ships moved like ghosts, striking from impossible angles and disappearing before return fire could reach them. Within an hour, the great command ship was drifting helplessly in space. Its weapons were destroyed. Its engines were dead, but its crew was alive and its slaves were free. "This is impossible," Kethvar said over the radio. "The Council will stop you." Lee Minho's reply was quiet but filled with certainty. The Council had their chance. They chose to let innocents die. Now we choose to let innocents live. The human ghost fleet disappeared into the darkness between stars. Behind them, they left a disabled enemy ship and 200 freed slaves who would never forget that the dangerous Deathworlders had risked everything to save them. The hunt continued. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with worried voices. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in floating chairs arranged in a great circle. At the center, Fleet Admiral Vorthak of the Veltar Empire stood before a large display screen. "Honored Council members," Vorthak said, his scaled hide showing patches of fear pale. "The Veltar Empire formally requests military assistance against unknown attackers." Council Speaker Zenthara floated forward in her chair. "Unknown attackers? Explain." The display screen showed recordings from damaged Veltar ships. Shaky camera footage revealed glimpses of dark shapes moving between the stars, weapon impacts that came from empty space, ships that appeared and vanished like ghosts. "In the past 6 months, we have lost over 60 vessels," Vorthak continued. "Our entire operation in the Outer Rim has been destroyed. These attackers use weapons we do not understand. They strike without warning and disappear before we can respond." Representative Kolthara from the Centauri Federation leaned forward. "Could these be Council ships operating in secret?" "No," replied Vorthak quickly. "Council ships use energy weapons. These attackers use kinetic projectiles, solid metal moving at impossible speeds." The chamber filled with whispered conversations. Kinetic weapons were considered primitive technology. No civilized species had used them for thousands of years. "Who would use such outdated weapons?" asked Representative Velnara from the Vegan Confederacy. Before anyone could answer, the great doors of the chamber opened. A figure walked in without invitation or announcement. She was tall and moved with confidence. Her dark hair was pulled back and she wore a simple gray uniform. The chamber fell silent. Most of the council members had never seen a human before. "I am President An So-young of the Terran Federation," she announced. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber. "I believe you have questions about kinetic weapons." Security Chief Kang Woo-jin followed behind her, along with 2 other humans in military uniforms. They moved to the center of the chamber without asking permission. Zenthara's forearms waved in anger. "This is a closed session. Humans are not invited to council meetings. Humans are members of the council." President An replied calmly. "Our representative Park Do-hyun has requested to speak many times. You have ignored him. Humans are tolerated, not equal members," Zenthara said. "You have no right to be here." President An smiled, but her eyes stayed cold. "We had no right to help when you ignored our distress calls either. But we did it anyway." The chamber erupted in confused voices. Fleet Admiral Vorthak stared at the humans with growing horror. "It was you," he said quietly. "The ghost ships. The kinetic weapons. You are the ones destroying our fleets. Yes, President An said simply. We are. Representative Kolthara's tentacles writhed with shock. This is impossible. Humans do not have advanced technology. You are primitive Deathworlders. Chief Science Advisor Lim Taehyung stepped forward. He was older than the others, with gray hair and kind eyes. But when he spoke, his voice was firm. You made assumptions about our technology based on our appearance, he said. You saw that we come from a dangerous world and decided we must be backwards. You were wrong. Lim Taehyung activated a small device in his hand. A holographic display appeared, showing detailed plans for human ships and weapons. Every human colony ship carries complete manufacturing blueprints for our entire industrial base, he explained. We learned long ago that we might need to survive alone. While you thought we were primitive, we were building the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. The hologram showed the human railguns in detail, the magnetic acceleration systems, the targeting computers that could calculate trajectories across light years, the stealth technology that made the ships invisible. Energy weapons require exotic materials, Lim Taehyung continued. Rare elements that must be mined from specific worlds. Kinetic weapons require only iron and electricity. Simple materials that exist everywhere. We turned simplicity into an advantage. Zenthara's voice shook with anger. You attacked Council-recognized territory without authorization. This is an act of war. President An turned to face her directly. 6 months ago, 300 human civilians asked for help. They sent distress calls on Council emergency channels. They followed all proper procedures. She paused, letting her words sink in. You deleted their messages. You called them aggressive primitives. You said they deserved whatever happened to them. The chamber was completely silent now. Even Zenthara had no response. Sol's Promise was attacked by Veltar raiders, President An continued. Families were enslaved. Children were sold like animals. The council knew this was happening and chose to do nothing. Park Do-hyun, the Human Council representative, finally spoke up from his position in the observer section. I begged them to send help, he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. I showed them the children's names, the families' faces. They said it was not their problem. President An nodded to him, then turned back to the council. So we handled the problem ourselves. We built ships. We trained crews. We went to the Outer Rim and we stopped the raiders. You had no authority, Zenthara protested. You gave us no choice, President An replied. When the council abandons its duties, someone else must take responsibility. Fleet Admiral Vorthak found his voice again. Your ships freed our slaves. That is theft of property. The humans in the chamber all turned to look at him. Their expressions were deadly calm. Property, President An said quietly. You call living beings property? By Veltar law, Vorthak began. By human law, interrupted Security Chief Kang Woojin, slavery is a crime punishable by death. We have been merciful with your crews. That mercy can end. Representative Velnara from the Vegan Confederacy spoke up nervously. How many ships do humans actually possess? Chief Science Advisor Lim Taehyung smiled. The 12 vessels that destroyed the Veltar fleet were just the beginning. We have been building defensive networks around vulnerable worlds throughout the galaxy. Host Council members do not know we are there. The chamber erupted in shocked voices again. The idea that humans had secretly placed military assets throughout Council space terrified the representatives. This is a violation of Council sovereignty, Zenthara declared. This is protection of innocent lives, President An replied. Something the Council should have been doing all along. She activated her own device and a new holographic display appeared. It showed star maps with hundreds of systems marked in blue. Human defense platforms are now active in 300 systems, she announced. Any ship that attacks civilians will be destroyed immediately. Any slave ship will be boarded and its cargo freed. The display zoomed in on specific systems. The council members could see their own worlds marked with blue symbols. You have been watching us, Representative Kolthara said with fear. We have been protecting you, President An corrected, because that is what civilized beings do. They protect those who cannot protect themselves. As Zenthara's rage finally exploded. How dare you lecture the council about civilization? You are violent Deathworlders from a savage planet. President An was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was sad but determined. Yes, we come from a dangerous world. Yes, we know violence, but we also know something you have forgotten. She gestured to the images of freed slaves on the display. We know that strength means nothing if you do not use it to protect the weak. We know that civilization is not about having advanced technology. It is about choosing to help those who need help. The chamber was silent again. Many of the council members looked uncomfortable. They had spent so long thinking of humans as primitive that they had never considered what humans might think of them. "What do you want?" asked Representative Velnara quietly. President On's answer was simple and clear. "We want the council to do its job. Establish proper distress response protocols. Protect all member species equally. Stop treating slavery as an acceptable business." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. "If the council will not protect innocent lives, then humanity will continue to do it alone. We have the ships. We have the will. And we remember every unanswered distress call. The revelation was complete. The primitive Deathworlders had become the galaxy's most powerful protectors. And they were just getting started." 3 months after President An Soyoung's speech to the Galactic Council, the Veltar Empire collapsed completely. Their remaining ships either surrendered or fled to the dark spaces between galaxies. The great slave markets that had operated for centuries were empty and abandoned. Rear Admiral Shin Hyuk commanded the human liberation fleet as it moved from world to world, freeing the remaining slave colonies. His ship, the Daigu's Justice, had become a symbol of hope for enslaved peoples across the galaxy. "Final slave world confirmed liberated," reported his communications officer. "The Altair mining colonies are free." Shin Hyuk nodded with satisfaction. "How many beings have we freed in total?" "Over 50,000 from 47 different species," came the reply. "The medical teams say most will recover fully with proper care." The human ships carried not just weapons but entire support systems for freed slaves. Medical facilities staffed by doctors like Nam Yuna, who understood trauma. Counselors who spoke hundreds of languages. Food processors that could create meals appropriate for any alien biology. But the most important thing they carried was proof. Video recordings, documents, and testimony from thousands of freed slaves. Evidence of what the Veltar had done, and how the council had allowed it to happen. Ambassador Yoon Jisoo was presenting this evidence to the Reformed Council emergency session. The chamber had been reorganized since President On's visit. Human representatives now sat as equal members, not observers. "The testimony is clear," Ambassador Yoon said, gesturing to the displays around the chamber. "The council's failure to respond to distress calls resulted in the enslavement of over 200,000 beings. The freed slaves had volunteered to testify about their experiences. They spoke about years of forced labor, families separated, children sold, but they also spoke about something else. How human ships had appeared like angels of mercy, asking for nothing in return. The humans treated us with kindness," testified Velkara, a blue-skinned Rigelian who had been enslaved for 5 years. "They gave us medical care. They helped us contact our families. They asked only that we remember their gift. They could have left us," added Korthek, a reptilian Draconis. "They had no obligation to help. We were not their people, but they came anyway." The testimonies went on for days. Beings from dozens of species all telling the same story. The humans had risked their lives to save strangers. They had spent their resources to heal trauma. They had given their time to reunite families. Meanwhile, the council had done nothing. Representative Zenthara tried to defend the old policies. "The council cannot be responsible for every conflict in the galaxy." "We must prioritize." "Prioritize what?" interrupted Ambassador Yoon. "Prioritize profit over people? Prioritize convenience over compassion?" She activated a display showing the star maps of human defensive networks. While the council debated priorities, humanity was building protection systems. "We now maintain defensive platforms in over 500 systems. We respond to distress calls within 6 hours. We provide medical aid, security assistance, and evacuation services to any species that requests help." The scope of human operations shocked the council. They had assumed the Ghost Fleet was just 12 ships. The reality was far larger. "You have built a parallel government," accused Representative Kolthara. "We have built what the council should have built," Ambassador Yoon replied. "A system that actually protects people." Chief Science Advisor Lim Taehyung presented the technical details of humanity's proposal for council reform. The plan showed integrated defense networks, rapid response protocols, and standardized emergency procedures. Human technology is compatible with Council systems, he explained. We can share our stealth capabilities, our kinetic weapons, and our sensor networks, but only if the Council commits to using them for protection, not conquest. The debate lasted for weeks. Some Council members wanted to reject human assistance out of pride. Others feared that accepting help would make them look weak. But the freed slaves kept testifying. More evidence kept arriving, and human ships kept responding to distress calls that Council forces ignored. Finally, Representative Velnara from the Vegan Confederacy stood to speak. My world sent a distress call last month, she admitted quietly. Pirates were attacking our outer colonies. The Council said it would take 3 weeks to organize a response. She paused, looking around the chamber. Human ships arrived in 4 hours. They stopped the attack, captured the pirates, and left without asking for payment or territory. They saved 3,000 of my people. Her words broke the resistance of many Council members. If humans were already protecting their worlds better than their own government, what was the point of refusing cooperation? The vote was closer than expected, but it passed. The Council agreed to establish the new Joint Defense Initiative, with human technology and tactics integrated into Council forces. Planetary Defense Coordinator Bai Minseo was appointed to oversee the transition. She had experience managing complex military logistics and spoke 12 different alien languages. The new system will have 3 priorities, she announced to the Reformed Council. First, no distress call goes unanswered. Second, all member species are protected equally. Third, slavery is treated as a crime against galactic civilization. The integration took months, but it worked. Human stealth technology made Council ships invisible to pirates. Human kinetic weapons gave them power to stop raiders quickly. Human tactics taught them to strike precisely without causing unnecessary damage. Most importantly, human principles taught them to care about protecting innocent lives. Captain Lee Minho received new orders as the transition completed. The Incheon's Fury would serve as the flagship for the Reformed Council. Navy. The former ghost ship would now work openly alongside alien vessels. It feels strange, admitted Commander O. Sungwon as they docked at the new Joint Command Station, being welcomed instead of feared. Lee Minho watched through the window as alien crews worked alongside human engineers. Feltar refugees freed from slavery were learning to operate the same defensive systems that had destroyed their former masters. Fear was never the goal, he said. Protection was the goal. Now we can protect people without hiding in the shadows. Engineer Choi Ji-won, survivor of the Soul's Promise attack, now served aboard the Council flagship. She had volunteered to help train alien engineers in human technology. The quantum entanglement communicators are the key, she explained to a group of Altarian technicians. They allow instant communication across any distance. No more delays in distress calls. The Altarians listened carefully. They had learned to respect human expertise. More importantly, they had learned to respect human values. The new system was tested quickly. A distress call came from the Rigel system. Veltar remnants were attacking a medical station. Under the old Council, the response would have taken days or weeks. Under the new system, human and alien ships arrived together within 3 hours. The attack was stopped. The criminals were captured alive. The medical station was repaired and upgraded with better defenses. No one died. No one was enslaved. The system worked. Ambassador Yoon Ji-soo sent regular reports back to Earth about the Council's progress. The changes were real and lasting. Species that had been ignored were now protected. Distress calls that had been deleted were now answered immediately. The Council has learned an important lesson, she wrote in one report. Strength without compassion is not civilization. Technology without morality is not progress. True advancement comes from choosing to help those who need help. The galaxy was changing. The predators had been replaced by protectors. The indifferent had been replaced by the caring. And at the center of it all were the humans, the primitive, Deathworlders who had taught an advanced galaxy what it really meant to be civilized engineer. Choi Ji-won stood on the observation deck of the Council flagship and looked out at the stars. 6 months ago, she had been a refugee sending desperate distress calls into the void. Now she was helping to make sure no one would ever face that silence again. She thought about Kim Hana, whose final transmission had reached Earth and started this revolution. About the 300 families of Soul's Promise, whose sacrifice had awakened humanity's protective fury. Their deaths had not been forgotten. Their call for help had finally been answered, and across the galaxy, no distress signal would ever be disregarded again.